Gibson, we need to talk. But before we do, let's get one thing out of the way. From the title of this video, it probably sounds like I'm a Fender fanboy. And if you look at my recent purchases, then they would confirm this. But it wasn't always this way. My first guitar ever was actually a Squier Bullet. It was red with a white pickguard, and while I liked it, I wasn't in love with it. So my next electric guitar purchase was an Epiphone Dot. I got it on Black Friday for around $300 and I was hooked. I figured the next step up should be a real American-made Gibson. So I went with a Firebird 5. It was bright white, it came in a giant leather case, and teenage me was impressed at first. However, as time went on, I started noticing more and more issues with the playability, and eventually I sold that guitar. That was around 2009. And Gibson enthusiasts will be quick to point out that this era was not a particularly great time for the brand. So what was I expecting? But that actually brings us to my first problem with Gibson, the inconsistent quality from year to year. While it's annoying to have to do research to try to pick the right era of any given guitar, that also has a knock-on effect that's not so sweet. The prices of the so-called golden era Gibsons are artificially inflated due to the lower quality of the other years, meaning the good ones are becoming less attainable every day. And we'll get to another point that has to do with money later on, which I think even the Gibson lovers among us may agree with. But for now, I want to talk about the Gibson problem that I think nobody can argue. See, once I started noticing the issues I had with my Firebird, I did some more research, and it seemed like the Gibson SG Special would solve those issues. My main problem was with the finish on the back of the neck. It always felt sticky to me no matter what I did, so whenever I played, my hand would just move super slow on the neck. So getting a more natural SG should solve that. The Firebird also had really bad neck dive, and since I was playing keyboards and guitar at the same time in that band, it was getting in the way of playing my keyboard parts. Every time I'd go to play keys, the neck would fall and hit me right in the left forearm. So I ordered the SG from Musician's Friend and waited for my new guitar to arrive. However, when it finally made it to my door, the headstock had snapped right off the neck. By the time my return had been processed, it was report card season, and I was failing math class. So as a punishment, my mom decided that we weren't going to be reordering the SG, and I haven't owned one since. Now, I'm not going to blame Gibson for my poor math skills, but if it had arrived in one piece, it wouldn't have been an issue. While I know shipping accidents do happen, this is not the only Gibson that I've had break in transit. I actually purchased a guitar from the Tom DeLonge Reverb sale as well, and that came in with the classic U-shaped headstock break. And that was super heartbreaking because that was a one-of-a-kind piece. And another time, an artist that I was producing tipped over a stand that my 1967 Les Paul was sitting in, and it fell super lightly, string side down, and that also gave it the U-shaped break. So while this is anecdotal, I've never had another guitar break at the headstock even after countless drops. There's a reason that I'll throw my telly across the stage at the end of a show. That thing is built like an absolute tank. So while the headstock break can be partially blamed on the owner of the guitar, there are some small things I've noticed on my current Gibsons that just shouldn't be happening. For one, the pickup selector switch always pops back into the middle position on my Explorer, and it did the same on my Firebird as well. Thankfully, the Explorer's neck feels way more solid, so I'm not afraid to put it in my trailer and bring it to a gig, but that does bring me to another point about Gibsons that I think even the true fans will agree with. Gibson's pricing strategy has really gotten out of control. While they have always had premium and luxury models to look forward to buying, I remember growing up with Gibsons that were attainable as well. This works for most brands because it gets people interested in the top of the line, borderline unattainable model, and then they'll settle for the more affordable one that's also really high quality. There's a reason that Bang & Olufsen has a $135,000 pair of speakers, and it's not because selling those $135,000 speakers is core to their business model. It's because people geek out about those speakers, they go to the store to try them out, and then they end up leaving with a $500 pair of headphones that they may or may not actually need. When I was coming up, there were Les Paul Studios for $899 new, and now a Les Paul Junior, which was originally a student model guitar, retails for over $1,600. Whenever I bring this up, there are two answers that I hear often. One is go play Epiphones, and two is that Gibson is a luxury brand, so they should be charging whatever they want. When it comes to Epiphone, the answer is simply no. I don't want to play a guitar with an ugly headstock and no resale value just because Gibson can't figure out how to make a guitar that's under $1,200. And as far as being a luxury brand, I would actually push back on that pretty hard. They certainly have luxury pricing, but from when I started playing up until around 2019, they haven't made guitars that I think fit the quality control standards of a luxury brand. And do I even need to mention this? Or what about this? I think that's why you're seeing headlines like none of the artists at Coachella played Gibsons. And honestly, I get it. I'm not gonna put my $1,600 Gibson guitar into the cargo hold of an airplane just so I can spend the entire flight worrying about my guitar making it to the stage in one piece. Kids coming up these days don't look up to players like Angus Young or Pete Townsend anymore. I mean, some do, but the kids can't afford to buy those guitars anymore anyway. And that brings me to my last and final gripe with Gibson, which is the Play Authentic campaign. If you're not familiar, Gibson had a marketing campaign where they fired a warning shot at other guitar makers, threatening legal action if other brands use their body shapes. And speaking of, let me show you this bad boy right here. It's a Greco Les Paul Jr. copy, and I just got it secondhand from a buddy of mine. It's had some work done on it, to say the least, and it's had at least one pickup replaced, and the body has some interesting wear on it. But the neck, the pickups, and the tone are outstanding, and it's something that you can get a hold of for less than a mortgage payment. And look, I get why Gibson has to protect their trademark body shapes. Personal gripes with our copyright and trademark system aside, I understand why I can't just go make a clone of whatever guitar I want, make a logo that looks just like Gibson's logo, and then sell that guitar. But at the same time, their inability or refusal to make an affordable option is what creates a gap in the market for other brands to make their own Les Pauls, Flying Vs, whatever it is. And honestly, using that as a way to market their overpriced stuff is pretty tone deaf to me. In a time where it's getting harder for pretty much everyone to find a good job, pay for healthcare, or even find time to make music in the first place, the last thing we need is to feel guilted into purchasing the most expensive guitars on the market. I know that those ads were aimed at boutique luthiers doing Gibson copies, but the Play Authentic slogan wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed at us, the consumers. And honestly, while I stand by everything I've said in this video, there's one thing that will always bring me back to playing and owning Gibsons, and that is simply the sound. The fact of the matter is, as much as we all criticize Gibson, it's because we care, and we want them to make the best guitars that they can make. We've seen what happens when Gibson is at their best. When they are firing on all cylinders, they make some of the absolute best guitars on the market. And we all know that classic sound when we hear it. And at the end of the day, we just want to be able to buy a nice, quality-made guitar at a price point that doesn't make us scared to actually take the thing out of the case. It's been said that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And I agree, especially when it comes to Gibson. So let me know in the comments if you agree with my takes here, subscribe if you want music gear videos in your feed every single Friday, and check out this video right here on my friend Josh's channel where we talk about the differences between Gibson Les Pauls and Fender Strats. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.